Ladies and gentlemen, we have a returning guest to welcome to the podcast for a deep dive into the 2022 NFL Draft this coming weekend. This guy has forgotten more about college football than most of us know. He is the host of the TNT College Football Podcast. I got the shirt on right now, which can be found on Facebook with that name. You can find him on Twitter at TNT College Foot One. His personal page at Coach B_B Will. Ladies and gentlemen, our own football guy, Bobby Wilson. Bobby, how are you, my man?
Great, guys. Thank you so much for having me back on. Super excited to talk about the draft. I'm super pumped for the draft this year just because I know so much about the guys that are going to be in it this year. So it's fired up about it.
I was telling you before the podcast that I speak for myself. I don't know much about anything going on in this draft, so like whatever information you give me is what I'll know.
Hey, there's a lot of people saying that this draft isn't very good, and I mean from a top flight perspective, that it's not. It doesn't have maybe the big name guys, and then the quarterback class isn't as great as it usually is, but there's still a lot of really talented guys out there.
We need guys like you to keep this kind of stuff going at this kind of with a year like this. But I've heard this year is not a good draft. How does this draft rank compared to previous years?
Well, kind of like I said with the quarterback class, it's not as good on paper as years past. I mean, you look at some of the guys there, and if you're asking me to be completely honest about that, I personally think that the top quarterback in this class realistically is a second round pick. Obviously, that's not going to happen. One of them will go top 10, I'm sure, just because somebody needs a quarterback. But it's definitely not at the level from the quarterback position as years prior, but there's some really good positions that are pretty loaded. The edge rushers got some really talented guys, top to bottom. Offensive tackles got some really good guys, and then the top 15 wide receivers, I think, are they're top notch guys. I mean, you can go down the line 1 through 15, and you're going to get a guy who can really do some stuff for you.
Oh, for sure. I think that we'll get a little deeper into positions here in a couple questions, but we got to start off at the top, Bobby. The Jags have claimed that they have 4 possible players they're going to take at number 1. Do you buy that, or is it like a foregone conclusion that Aiden Hutchinson is going to go number 1? What do you think about that big number 1 spot, with obviously it being not as deep at the quarterback position as it normally is?
If you're asking me, Jacksonville, in my opinion, should take an offensive lineman. You take Trevor Lawrence. You take Trevor Lawrence, and he's your guy. I mean, you gotta build around that. Now they've spent a good amount of money in free agency this offseason, and they franchise tagged their offensive tackle. But if I were them, I would take Evan Neal from Alabama. But I personally think they are going to go Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan. There's talks recently from a lot of people that I've come in contact with that Travon Walker from Georgia is somebody that they're really, really high on as well, and that the GM is super, super high on him, while the owner wants Aiden Hutchinson. So I think there's that battle kind of going on right now between. I think it's going to end up being Walker or Hutchinson. If you're looking at the two of those guys, I think Hutchinson you got to take.
Okay.
But why do you think they are going to take him over the player that you think that they should take?
I think that I think for one, the spending that they've done in the offseason, adding some pieces to their offensive line, I think that they feel comfortable where they're at in that position, where they necessarily don't need to take one of the top tackles. The top 3 tackles in this draft talented guys. But I think the opportunity to get Aiden Hutchinson, to me, he kind of plays like Jared Allen. He's a really good culture fit, and his motor is super, super high. So I think you're just getting a guy who's just going to, one, play his butt off, and two, he can fit into any scheme.
Don't hate that.
I don't hate that at all. Who is the best quarterback in your opinion in this draft?
Yeah, you said he's a second-round guy. So who's the best quarterback out there, man?
Who's going in the second round? Because would that be the first time maybe ever that a quarterback didn't go in the first round?
Oh, absolutely. That would absolutely be the case. But
I didn't know.
I've gone back and forth on this with a couple different guys. But the guy that I think has the best potential, especially with the way the NFL is turning now, is Malik Willis from Liberty. I just feel with the way the NFL is going, with a lot of these quarterbacks being more mobile and being able to do things besides passing the ball, I think he brings the most upside. If you ask me who's the most ready to step in and play right away, it's probably Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. But, I mean, obviously none of these guys are going to get drafted and start right away. I mean, they're just not ready. Somebody I'm really high on that a lot of people aren't talking as much about, and Chance, you'll like this, being a Matt guy, is Caleb Ellaby from Western Michigan. I've seen him in person this past year, and he's a really dynamic quarterback. He can do some things with his feet. He's got a really strong arm. Really drops the ball in there really well. So somebody in the third, fourth, fifth round is going to get a guy there who could grow into something.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all. Coming out of, like you said, someone takes a later round, maybe even later than that. Maybe you see him slip with the depth of the other positions, and see a guy like him, 4, 5, 6 round and get his chance here in a couple years. They had a really solid season.
How many rounds are there in the NFL draft?
7.
7. Yep.
So
there used to be like 22 or 23, I think.
Yeah, that thing was ridiculous.
So how does this work out? Does it go the first day is just 1?
Yeah.
And the second day is
second and third.
3.
Yep.
And then 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
Bobby, do you miss those days when they did was it the first, second, and third round on Saturday, and then 4, 5, 6, 7 on Sunday? Is that what it used to be? I think that's what it used to be.
That'd be awesome if that's whatever you're saying, but that'd be awesome.
Well, I feel like they used to do it all in one, but I could be wrong there.
See, I remember it was the Reggie Bush draft. I think it was 2000. No,
you're right. You're right. It was first, second, and third. Yeah. First, second, third was Saturdays, and then Sunday was 4 through 7. Yep.
Yeah, and the only reason I remember is because I was playing freshman baseball. My dad was the coach, and we had a radio up in the announcer's booth, and we kept like sending somebody up there because we had the ESPN radio on, and we kept sending like one of the guys on the bench up to the announcer's booth to like relay the picks from the announcer's booth down. And my dad found out what we were doing and got very, very not happy with us because we were losing the game. So I always remember that that old question. But no, so Zach asked about the best quarterback here. What do you think is the deepest position in this draft? You said edge rushers earlier. There's some good wide receivers. Which one's the deepest in this year's draft?
I would say the deepest is wide receiver this year, just because, like I kind of said, the top 14, 15 guys at receiver this year it's stacked. There's some really, really talented guys. I mean, you can go on and on with some of these guys. And, my favorite personally is a guy who didn't even finish the season. Drake London from USC is the guy that I personally think is the top wide receiver in this class. He didn't finish the season; he was hurt, but to me he looks and plays like Mike Evans because he's long, lengthy, got great hands. just looks the part and plays the part. Then the next two guys, the two guys from Ohio State, and Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. Chris Olave he catches everything. I mean, it's as much as I don't like Ohio State. I mean, that guy just catches everything. Then there's some talented guys out of the SEC, of course. I mean, we all know that. But I think two guys to look at that, or three guys, I'll say, to look at that maybe not as many people are thinking of, are North Dakota State's Christian Watson. He is a speed demon. Somebody at the end of the first round, early second round, is going to get a guy who just is going to burn everybody. Then
Definitely.
one of the other guys I'm really high on is Sky Moore out of Western Michigan. He's another guy that just pops off the charts with his numbers and everything. And then another guy from a G5 school, Jalen Tolbert from South Alabama. He's a deep threat, and somebody could snag him in the third or fourth round and get somebody who can really do some things. And he kind of reminds me like when Kenny Galladay came into the Lions right away, and they used him just as a deep threat his first year. And I kind of see that as his role and as he develops.
Hey, that's a solid comp there. I like that.
That'd be awesome for him.
Yes.
Do you foresee a lot of draft day trades or no?
I always feel like it's really hard to gauge that. I do feel one team in particular that I think is definitely going to be trading.
The Browns? Oh,
the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, are going to be trading because they have 12 draft picks and they don't need 12 rookies on that roster. So I personally think that they have 29 and 30 in the first round. I personally think they're going to trade up and try to get one of the top name wide receivers after getting rid of Tyreek Hill. And that one to me kind of sticks out. And then I can see the Green Bay Packers trading up as well. Just
packaging those two first.
Yeah, because obviously they need a big play wide receiver. And
yeah.
I mean, I think Drake London would be perfect in that situation.
I like him or Olave. I would kill for either of those two.
Absolutely. I mean, I would hate to see it, but I mean, it only makes sense for them to do that. But
do you have any? Do you think that Debo will be traded on draft night at some point?
I've gone back and forth on this one too. I'm a diehard Detroit Lions fan. Chance, you know that. Right. It's a curse. It's a curse, but. There's nothing I'm super passionate about college football, but there's nothing I'm more passionate about than the Detroit Lions, unfortunately. But I've gone back and forth talking to some different Lions people and fans and stuff and saying, should we trade maybe the 32nd pick or the 34th pick for Deebo Samuels? Because we need a wide receiver as well. And I just don't know. I don't know if that's too much to give up, or I don't know if San Francisco is going to want more.
I feel like they would want more.
Well, not even that. Like, especially where Detroit's at with the rebuild. Like, you don't you've got to keep those picks for building. I mean, granted, Jared Goff's not the guy for the future, but when you have a guy or a coach entering his second year, you don't want to be, selling the franchise for the future of the franchise for a guy
what is the Detroit Lions first round pick?
We have the second pick. Second, and we have 32nd. We have the Rams pick as well at 32.
That's right.
Imagine having that.
Zach, you wouldn't know much about that this year anyway.
Yeah, I don't know about a first round pick. I don't know about a first round pick. My team doesn't understand that. They trade away picks like that for players they don't even have anymore.
that burns a little bit, but obviously
I don't care.
Not salty about it at all, are you, Zach?
I don't care.
Speaking of those Bears, what would you say, Bobby, are the biggest needs that the Bears need to address going into this draft, especially being the depth that is in this draft at the defensive end position, the wide receiver position? Where do you think the Bears need to go? Obviously, 2 second-round picks. What are some directions you think that they need to go with this year?
Other than everything.
I was just going to say that I'm going to try to be not as condescending as I possibly can, but. No. In all honesty, though, I mean, I really feel they need to upgrade the offensive line.
Broken record there.
Poor Justin Fields was just, I mean, he was running for his life. And I personally think, I didn't think this last year when he was drafted. I thought he was going to be a bust. But watching him play this year, I really think that he has the tools to be successful.
If you watch that Pittsburgh game, game when they play against the Steelers, I mean, he was making throws that's what a good quarterback do. I'm not saying that everything was like what game was it? He had one of the worst offensive performances maybe of all time, combined with just bad coaching, I would have to say.
Right. Yes, absolutely. But I think that the Bears, with that early pick, should go offensive tackle with the first second-round pick that they have. And I think that they need to try. I mean, maybe Trevor Penning from North into the early second round there. I don't think he will. I think he's going to be a first-round pick for sure. But then Bernhard Raimann from Central Michigan, who Central Michigan actually has 2 tackles that are going to be drafted this year. That they had a really, really good running game this year. They had the running back led the nation in rushing this year. So I mean, you're getting their offensive line had some really talented guys on it. So I think that's a guy that the Bears should really look at right there. And then with that second round pick, you could start to then look at wide receiver because that's so deep there, or the many other defensive holes that they could fill. I think one guy that they can look at with the second round pick, if he's still available, is somebody that I've watched probably more than any college football fan, is because I have a partnership with the University of Connecticut, is Travis Jones from UConn. Now, I know people are going to hear that and be like, UConn is awful, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This young man, if he was at Alabama or Clemson, would be a top 10 pick in the draft. But he was at UConn and goes to the Senior Bowl. And when he's at the Senior Bowl, he blows up because everybody finally sees, like, oh, this guy can really play.
Most people aren't sitting watching UConn and UMass duke it out in week 7,
Absolutely. And I don't blame them.
No, that's how they torture prisoners at Guantanamo Bay, is they make them watch that game.
Now I will say, side note, that UConn is changing things, and it's going to be a lot better.
Twitter, things are looking up there. But so Bears fans, when the Bears get a chance to take a kid out of UConn, and you want to say, who the hell is this guy? You've heard it here first that it's not as bad of a pick as you may sound.
Don't be alarmed.
No, Travis Jones can play. Yes, he can play. And I think another guy, if the Bears wait to draft an offensive tackle until maybe the 3rd or 4th round, I think a guy to really look at is Daniel Falale from Minnesota. Mm-hmm. He's 6'8", and he came into Minnesota. He was over 400 pounds, and now he's down to about 380. He's a massive human being. I mean, he can.
Yeah.
But I mean, he can.
Is humongous.
He can move. He scored a touchdown. He scored a touchdown rushing the ball during the season, or in the bowl game, I should say. So I mean, he's nimble. I mean, yes, he's huge, but I mean, he can move.
380.
For 380, he can move.
So Bobby, you're a big draft guy. How many guys you just see that are just 300 and plus? So you're just like, I cannot believe how athletic they are.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean,
isn't that crazy to see like a guy who's over 300 pounds move like that?
Well, it's like Jordan Davis from Georgia, the defensive tackle. I mean, he ran his 40 at the combine. I want to say it was like 4.8 or something like. Which, I mean, he's like 300. He's a 350-pound man. Like that's not supposed to happen. I mean,
which is that kind of stuff fascinates me.
Mhm.
Like even like let's say I'm a Bears fan, Brian Urlacher, a guy his
Mhm.
size that can move that fast.
Right.
Like
Absolutely.
a linebacker that size that can move that fast is just it's crazy to me.
But it's also like crazy in the same sense of how far it's
Guys
come in
get
the
hurt so
last
much in
10
the
years.
NFL.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, that it's insane.
Mhm.
And like we're
Very true.
we're gonna be having the same
Very true.
conversation in 10 years and be like, we're gonna be talking about 400 pounds and how they're
Yeah.
running 4.8.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like,
it's
Yeah.
gonna be it's gonna be crazy.
Right.
Are there any names that may slide out of the first round that may be available for the Bears in the second round? That they
come on,
need?
Bobby, give us something juicy here. Somebody that was like,
Something
we
good,
know.
something that on draft night we can cut up and say, hey, our guy Bobby, he called it.
Well, I think I just gave you the two number one guys that if they fall to the Bears, Trevor Penning, offensive tackle from Northern Iowa, and then Travis Jones, defensive tackle from I think if they fall, the Bears absolutely have to pick them. Or if Treylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas, falls, I think that he then would be somebody that they would have to take at that position because, I mean, his size and speed at receiver is going to translate. Those would be the three guys in particular that I think of real quickly that if they're there, the Bears need to gobble them up. But the first one I would take is Penning, the tackle, because I feel like that's the number one need for the Bears.
Bobby, I know you're a Lions fan, Chance is a Packers fan, but how many years can we go in a draft where they go, the offensive line is what they need? I mean, I swear to God, it's been 5 years in a row.
Oh, it feels like more than that.
Well, I think
man.
You know what I mean? It's just like every year it's like, oh, they need a tackle. Oh, they need an offensive tackle. They need a right tackle. They need this and that. It's like, well, when are we going to figure this out?
Well, here's how you figure it out. You fire the GM.
We did that.
Right.
So I mean, that one off the list.
So you guys did that. It's the same thing we needed to do as the Detroit Lions. We had to do the same thing, and now we're heading in the right direction.
Bobby, you know what? We can't all get lucky and have two generational quarterbacks that only win us one Super Bowl each. So, you know what I mean? We can't all get that lucky.
Right.
Two more than you dorks have seen.
Hey, 1957, man.
Wait. How old were you when they won the first one?
7.
7. You don't remember that?
Yes, I do. I watched it at your house, actually.
I was 2 years old when the Lions won their only playoff game.
Yeah, you should probably just not tell people that.
I know.
Zach was -10 when the Bears last won the Super Bowl.
It's 85, yeah. You know.
I was -4.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But okay, so obviously all the needs that the Bears have. Do you think that they're going to package maybe these 2 second-round picks and move into the first? Is that a remote possibility you think that they might do, or are they to the point where you're rebuilding, you're looking at the future with the new GM and the new coach? Do you not even look at something like that if you're Ryan Poles?
I mean, obviously, if something presents itself, you obviously jump on it, but I don't think they're going to be able to get to the position that they would need to get to get one of the that I think that they need. Like I'm just going off the offensive tackle position, for example. Like the top 3 guys are top 15 picks. And you're not going to package 2 second rounders to move in the top 15. Now maybe they could move into the late 20s to get somebody. That's a possibility, or the early to mid 20s to get somebody. That could be a possibility, but I just don't see him doing it.
Okay.
Let's go around the division. Do you truly see the Packers trading their first round picks for any big name receivers?
I don't see them trading it for a big name receiver who is currently in the NFL. However, I do see them trading up. I really firmly believe that they're going to trade up and try to get Drake London from USC. I think if you put him in that offense, the sky's the limit. I mean, Drake London to me has the potential to be like, obviously I don't want to say like a generational type receiver, but I think he has the potential to be a top high end wide receiver for many years. And obviously Aaron Rodgers and the Packers just lost that guy that they had. So I think adding the next best that they can get at that position is going to be huge for them. I also think that there's a possibility they could go get somebody in free agency as well, but because there's still plenty of guys out there. But
my only worry about that, my only rebuttal to that would be is with Aaron Rodgers nearing the end of his career, I don't 100% know if he's willing to say, okay, go take a kid out of USC who's 21, and by the time he's reached his peak, I'll be gone. Now, obviously, for the future of the Packers,
You know what? Tom Brady would do that. Tom Brady would do that.
I
Because
agree.
He knows that's what the greater team wants. But a guy like Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of selfish in that kind
but
of
I'm
way.
just like,
Where he just thinking about the now. He's thinking about the now.
I mean, he's got 4 years. He's got 4 years to finish. That's what it's on his. I don't know if he'll be in Green Bay all 4 of those.
I'm just saying. It sounds kind of selfish to me.
Oh, really? Tom Brady going and getting Randy Moss and all these other guys at the end of their career wasn't anything selfish from Tom Brady?
No.
It's a bad comp. But I don't know. That's just the way I look at it. I would love for the future of the Packers for them to go get London
As an owner, Boomy says
owner, that's true. I forgot my owner's hat upstairs. But the future of it, obviously, but like I don't know, where he sits with this because there's been, rumors. Yeah, obviously we talked about Deebo Samuel, but AJ Brown,
right.
A bunch of other big name guys. Yeah. But I'll be honest, I think I'd rather have a kid and get the production like you saw. A lot of these rookies come out and be very Jalen Waddle. I mean, Devontae Smith.
Bobby, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut through this, but you just said some pretty good wide receivers' names or whatever. Why would you trade away Devontae Adams? What are we talking about? We're talking about you getting like, I want Deebo, I want this, I want that. But we traded Devontae Adams.
You don't understand economics. That was a business decision.
It was completely business. I think it got to the point though where
that's crazy.
I think it got to the point too where Devontae Adams didn't necessarily want to be there anymore.
Yeah, who would want to be in the Packers? Who would want to be in that organization?
Literally anybody on the Bears would want to be on the Packers.
No,
because they win.
Justin Fields wants to be on the Bears, on the Packers.
No, he doesn't. He's there because he has to. He's legally bound to be
Bobby.
there.
I don't mean to be a troll. I'm just trolling him right now because it's fun.
Hey, I do it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Me and Bobby have a thing in common. It's we don't like the Packers.
This is true.
But obviously, you guys in Detroit have a lot of needs. Where do you see? We kind of tease this, with the rebuild and everything. The Lions got the 2 pick. What are the Lions going to do in this draft? Are they still aiming for the future? Are they going to start packaging guys? Where do you think the Lions are going here in 2022?
Okay, I'm going to try. Obviously, going to try to be as unbiased as I can here. With
you can be biased here. We're very biased. Biased podcasters.
I firmly believe that the Lions aren't as far off as people think. Now, granted, the beginning of the season was rough, but towards the end of the season, when Goff was healthy, they were able to put some stuff together, and they looked like a football team.
But what do you think Jared Goff can be as a quarterback? What do you think his peak is? Was his peak the Super Bowl? or is his peak still down the road?
The wild card round.
I don't think
no, you know what I mean though. I'm
Yeah,
asking
in
you,
the
do you think
future.
his best is still yet to come, or do you think he already had his best game?
I don't want to say that his peak is still coming because
Yeah,
the supporting cast he had around him in Detroit last year was the youngest in the NFL. Like every guy on the Lions roster basically was younger than I am. I'm 32, and I think last I heard at the end of the season they only had 2 guys that were older than 32 years old on the roster.
Oh my gosh!
So I mean So I don't want to sit there and say like Jared Goff can't take them to where I would like them to get to. Now, granted, I just want them to get to the playoffs for goodness sake. That's all I want.
Yeah.
But to answer the question of when it comes to that is I don't feel like Detroit needs a quarterback as much as people think they do. Especially with this draft class being as weak as it is.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So for this year, Jared Goff's contract, at the end of next year, we're able to cut him, and he's no cap hit at that point. So we still have our own pick next year and the Rams pick next year, and next year's quarterback class is going to be amazing with Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. You can go on and on. It's going to be amazing. This conversation we have next year is going to be completely different for quarterbacks.
Very true. Very true.
But so, I mean, and Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, has been a huge Jared Goff supporter. He was part of the staff that drafted him with the Rams, and they was a part of that. So, and he's come out and said in many interviews that he is supportive of Goff and wants him to be there. And I mean, I understand he has to say that stuff because he's the quarterback currently. I mean, he's not just going to sit there and say he sucks. No, but
it would be hilarious if he did though.
That'd be amazing. That'd be amazing if like.
Hey, listen, we're going to cut it through this year, but just know our quarterback's not very good.
Imagine, yeah.
I would respect
that would be
so
like,
that would be amazing.
They're like, what's your biggest concern in the draft? A quarterback, because our quarterback sucks.
That would be incredible.
That would be amazing if somebody did that. That'd be gret. But to get back to what the Lions need or what they're going to do, I've gained some insight from somebody that is very credible in our industry and what we do. And
I like to hear that, Bobby.
This individual told me that the Lions have guaranteed Kayvon Thibodeau that they are going to take him at number 2.
That's what I like to hear.
Now, obviously, this is professional sports and anything can happen. I personally think if Jacksonville doesn't take Aiden Hutchinson, that the Lions need to take Aiden Hutchinson because he's a perfect culture fit with what Dan Campbell's doing.
And being a Michigan guy.
Absolutely.
I would say that
he's from Michigan.
It's more on the Lions.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. He'd be unbelievable if that was able.
I'd rather him not be on the Lions, but
no, he's a Michigan kid. He's from Michigan. He's from Saline.
I mean,
he would.
Bears fan, I do not want to see that because he will be sacking Justin Fields probably at some point.
Absolutely. Now, I do think Jacksonville is going to take him. So the reason that this whole Kayvon Thibodeau thing comes about is the Lions sent 7 people to his pro day at Oregon. Brad Holmes, Chris Spielman, Dan Campbell. I mean, big name guys that are going.
Can I ask you a question, Bobby? I'm sorry, but 7 people? What is 7 people needed for?
Apparently, they want to get it right.
7 guys doing that 2 guys.
I don't mean to be rude.
Well,
like, why can't?
No, I agree.
1 or 2, 3, maybe 3 people. 7. We're gonna go. Hey, this guy is so good. We need fucking 10 people to go see him play. What? The more eyes, the better.
I mean, I agree with you. I don't understand why you would send 7 people, but that's what they did. And there are photos and some video of like Kayvon Thibodeau was in the end zone with his shirt off and like giving Brad Holmes a hug and like just.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like they're boys already. It seemed like,
Give me
but
that bag. Give me the bag.
but the number one thing that came that this is credible in my opinion is at the combine, Kayvon Thibodeau showed up. He was going to perform and do everything. He runs his 40 time, and then just leaves. Just says, "Hey, I'm done." And allegedly, what happened at the combine was Brad Holmes, the Lions GM, said, "Hey, we're going to take you." So once he heard that, he's like, "Hey, I'm done. I don't want to risk hurting myself," and he left.
I respect it.
That's what I've been told.
I respect that.
By somebody that I personally respect and agree.
Hey, and
I would agree with.
That's not a bad thing because 9 months ago, everybody said that Thibodeau was the foregone conclusion to be the number 1 overall pick. And obviously he didn't have a great season at Oregon. But yeah, Tom Thibodeau's going to go play defensive end for the Lions. I would pay so much money to see that. Oh,
I would not.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Yeah, it would be hilarious. It would be hilarious.
But
right,
yeah, if that was my team, I agree. I would.
No, I agree because like at the beginning of the year, like everybody's like it's Kayvon Thibodeau and everybody knows it, and he like the first handful of games he looked unstoppable. I mean he came back and played in the Cal game because he was injured for the Ohio State game. He was injured at the beginning of the year. First game back, he plays at home against Cal on a Friday night, and I watched this game on TV, and he had like it was something ridiculous. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it was like 17 pressures or like I mean it was something.
Kid is a freak.
It was in the teens. I know that much. I mean, he's a freak. Obviously, there's questions on maybe his work ethic or whatever it may be. Like if he's gonna, when he gets paid, if he's gonna want it as much. But to me, worst case, he's Jadeveon Clowney. He's an athletic freak who can do so many things. I mean, Jadeveon Clowney didn't necessarily live up to the hype that was put on him, but he still has had a great career.
Bobby, as you love the draft or whatever, do you think Jadeveon Clowney exceeded his expectations, or do you think it was below expectations?
Oh, below. I mean, when he was in high school,
I would have to think it was below. I mean, when
he was in high school and in South Carolina, I mean, he was an unstoppable force.
Unbelievable.
I mean, I'll never forget the play that he made in the Outback Bowl against Michigan. There was a penalty called.
That was insane.
Yes, there was a penalty called against him, and he absolutely disagreed with the penalty. So he turns around on the very next play and about decapitated Denard Robinson and the running back.
His helmet went.
Yes, I mean, Jadeveon Clowney when he was in high school and at the University of South Carolina was just, I mean, he was like LeBron James. That level of like he had that potential. He had that type of potential.
I mean,
Bobby,
that one play is played over and over and over in some places.
Not even that, Bobby. Obviously, you follow like a lot of the recruitment and stuff. He was, I want to say, even to this day, the highest rated recruit ever on like 24/7 Sports or Rivals or one of those two.
Yes.
Yep.
Him, I think he was 1 and Von Miller was 2.
Yeah,
if you could have had a 7, 8 star. He was the 8 star.
Yeah,
he was that absolutely. And I remember watching a couple of his high school games on TV and just looking and just being like, well, this is it wasn't even fair.
Yeah,
and it's in South Carolina, so the teams that he's good. It's not like he's playing against slouch opponents.
But
in the South,
he's like twice.
I mean, he was a grown man.
He's twice
that's exactly.
It's
Right,
like
right.
that guy is that age. He shouldn't be that big
Hmm.
or that strong or that like just pure athlete. But
Right.
then it seemed like it caught up to him.
Well, he got injured a lot.
No, yeah,
So
I know what
that
you mean. But then
that
everyone else was also pretty.
yeah,
athletic.
everybody else in the NFL is
But like,
very
I
big
know
and
what you
very
mean. Though,
strong.
like, it's one of those things. Like before he went to the league, it was like he was a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Like you haven't seen something like that before.
Exactly. That's what I remember about him too. Like like you said, the highest rated recruit ever, and like obviously the play at Michigan, and he still had a really productive career. So
That's one of those guys though that needs to be respected more. Like Javion Clowney should be respected more because he is he may have not lived up to the expectations of whatever, but like he is still one of those guys in college that was maybe one of the best of all times in college.
I mean, I agree with you. I think Jadeveon Clowney from when he was at the college level, I mean, he was just an absolute freak of nature, just an unstoppable force. And I remember when he was there. Obviously, you got to be 3 years removed from high school, and after his second year, he actually took out a insurance policy to protect himself in case he was injured. To make sure that he still made millions, the millions that he deserved to make at that point. And I mean, he's done that obviously as a football player, but I mean, he was that level of athlete that he was able to do that.
Jadeveon Clowney is the type of athlete that like you would have wondered like what he could have made in the NIL deal. Like he could have made
Oh
he
my
could have made
goodness.
so
made
much
South
money.
Carolina relevant.
Oh yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
especially
I'd
after
say
that
something.
deal.
Yep.
But we all know the struggles that the Vikings have as quarterback. Yeah, Kirk Cousins, not very good. Do you think the Minnesota Vikings will take a quarterback? Or what are some other needs that you think they need to address?
Well, I'll first lead off with, if you look up mediocre in the dictionary, Kirk Cousins' picture is going to be there.
Yeah,
I love
truth.
it because he stinks.
Yes. But to be honest with you, they drafted Kellen Mond last year out of Texas A&M, and I've always been a fan of his. And I really feel, given an opportunity, that he could do some things. But time will tell with that. But realistically, the Vikings need everything on defense. So if they didn't draft, and it's the same thing with the Lions. I think the Lions have 8 draft picks. 5 out of the 8 draft picks need to be defensive players. I think 75 to 80% of the Vikings draft picks need to be defensive guys because that's where they're lacking. I mean, offensively, we know their star power with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. I mean, they got some guys on offense. So, I mean, but they got to fix the defense. So I personally think that they got to go the defensive route. And again, I go back to this quarterback class being a little bit down, where I wouldn't necessarily draft a quarterback high. I think they have the 12th pick in the first round. I think if Jordan Davis from Georgia falls to them at defensive tackle, I think if he slips to that place, I mean, they have to take him.
They have to.
Yeah, Jordan Day, you can't pass up on that, man. That's
Yeah.
I worry about seeing him in the division, but
Yes.
Well, yeah, because that I don't know. Minnesota always seems like they always have a great defense.
Yeah, it wasn't like that last year too, which is wild. That was very
Unfortunately,
uncharacteristic.
they'll always have Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, thankful.
Nobody wants that contract.
No one does.
Absolutely. Well, Bobby, it was great having you on, man. Everybody, make sure you check out the TNT College Football Podcast. I know you got some big stuff coming up. You've been hot on the interview trail, man, picking up some Coastal Carolina guys. I know you got some good connections at UConn.
Yep.
So Make sure you check out Bobby's podcast.
You know what? If you haven't checked out UConn football, check it out. This guy dedicated. You won't see anyone more dedicated to a team. It's you. I'm not trying to be rude, Bobby. I love UConn, but if you're that dedicated, that's dedication, my friend.
This year was the definition of when you look up dedication in the dictionary. Bobby's 21.
I'm not trying to be rude. My teams are not that great. What do I know? But that's awesome that you. I mean, you don't care. Like you're just having fun with it. Like that's what it needs to be.
Absolutely, and I mean, I had no.
That's journalism to a T.
I had no. When I started this, like a month in, I broke, like we had on the last episode I was on with you guys. I broke down every single program going into the season, and the guys at Sidelines UConn saw my predictions for some of the teams that they're going to play, and they're like, "Hey, we want this guy to help us and like work with us." So I'm like, "All right, let's do it." I'm like a month into it. I'm like, "Wow, I'm already partnered with somebody and all this and that." And I mean, I never rooted for UConn football, but it turned into that. And like you said, I mean, it was difficult. I mean, I watched every single UConn game and play last year so I would be the best journalist I could be. But I mean, like, it wasn't easy. But I mean, Travis Jones, the defensive tackle, I mean, that guy is a monster. I mean, he should be a first-round pick. They have an offensive tackle who could very well get drafted as well. And I mean, they've done an amazing job recruiting. They got a transfer linebacker from Kentucky. They got a transfer linebacker from Texas Tech, transfer quarterback from Penn State. I mean, they've done some amazing things, and Jim Moore on staff there has really changed things up there. It's really cool to see, and I'm glad that I was a part of it when it was at the absolute rock bottom. So when they build this back up, I can be a part of it too.
That's what I'm saying is going to be the coolest part is when you went through your first season covering them was, one of the most abysmal seasons in their football program's history.
Yes.
And then you're literally there at the ground floor watching it come to the top. But it is on Twitter at TNT College Foot One. Check out his Facebook page. Follow the link on Twitter. Get you a sweet TNT College Football Podcast shirt. Bobby, I got to ask last thing. Are you going to do the team breakdowns of all teams again this year? Because I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, absolutely. All right. I loved doing that. I mean, it took a lot of time, obviously, but now that I'm not coaching, I have a little bit more time, I guess I could say. I mean, I have young kids, so, but I stay up late nights doing that, but it's so much fun because I mean,
they go to bed at a good time.
Yes. The end goal for me is maybe I could be one of those guys getting paid to talk about college football like that. I mean, that'd be cool.
You're on the right path, brother.
Let's go.
Make sure, like I said, you check out TNT College Football Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We will most certainly have Bobby on as we near mini camps and off-season stuff, and then as the NFL season approaches us. Bobby, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was great having you on as always, and we're looking forward to the draft this weekend.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much.